Help! I need some help. Can you guys help? There's been a hijacking of science. Everywhere you look now, people are saying, I trust science. I believe in science. Well, science isn't a belief system. Science is a process. And what I've seen it become is this ideological dogma that's more based around consensus and groupthink. And what we need to do is bring it back to its foundation, which is doubt. The word science is actually based on the Latin injunction ignoramus, which means we don't know. And what it's basically saying is no concept, idea, or theory is sacred or beyond challenge. What I'm going to do today is challenge a couple theories, one of them being germ theory, and what came out of that, the virus theory. So starting in the early 1800s, Louis Pasteur, you've probably heard of him, he, using the microscope, was looking at illness and suspected that bacteria were causing the illnesses and diseases. But this is like explaining that firemen cause all fires because they are at the site of every single fire you look at. This wasn't the only theory in town. There was another theory called the terrain theory, and that was based on Antoine Béchamp's ideas around the environment. The health of the environment was how a healthy organism could exist like us. Interestingly, you see that Louis Pasteur on his deathbed admitted that the microbe is nothing and the environment is everything. Unfortunately, his idea for the germ theory is the one that stuck. You look further into the 1800s, we start to see Louis Pasteur and some other scientists are looking at other illnesses, can't find bacteria at the root of some of these. So they were suspected that there had to be something smaller at the root. With the invention of the electron microscope, they found what they were looking for. They found tiny little particles moving in and out of our cells. So what they called them, assuming they were bad for us, they called them viruses, which is the Latin term for toxins. What we did here over the last 150 years is made a crucial mistake in believing viruses were out to attack us. Viruses and bacteria are a part of nature. They're all around us. The human body is filled with bacteria. Over 200 trillion bacteria. Every square inch of skin is running around on that skin is millions of bacteria. Viruses are even more abundant. In the air that we breathe, there's 10 to the 31 viruses in the air. That's 10 million more viruses than there are stars in the universe. So what we did here is made a tragic mistake here of thinking viruses were the ones that were causing disease. Viruses are actually not even a living organism. Viruses are very, very similar to exosomes. Exosomes are messaging systems sent out by our cells that provide two functions. The first functions is for detoxing, releasing poisons. They release them in these little vesicles, little tiny vesicles. And then the second function that they do, and the most important one, is to provide genomic information to the cells nearby in our bodies, as well as other living beings and life forms outside of us. And what they do here is that toxins creates a disruption as well. So the more toxins in the environment means more exosomes or more viruses. So the more toxins you have, the more exosomes. So with those same toxins, they also disrupt a fundamental relationship with our bodies and our cells with that genomic information. And I'm going to go through a list of a few things that tell you about some of these disruptions with that genomic information that we should be receiving from these cells. First one is with pharmaceutical medicine. Statins and ACE inhibitors are two medicines that are used a lot. What they do is they disrupt a cell receptor in the lung. And this is important for coronaviruses because they have a specific message that can be accepted only by this ACE2 receptor in the lung. What these pharmaceutical meds do is they upregulate it and allow too much of this viral messaging all into the bloodstream, causing a overwhelming of our immune system. The second one is glyphosate. Main ingredient Roundup. It's everywhere you look. It's in the air, it's in the water, it's on our food. We dump hundreds of millions of pounds of it on our soils every single year. The problem with this one is it disrupts an enzyme that we have called ApoE3. What's important about this enzyme is when viruses come in and are released from our cells, what it does is it chops them up, breaks them down, and doesn't allow them to overwhelm us or replicate too much and overwhelm in our bloodstream. So it's very important to understand that it's not the virus that's causing this damage and illness. It's when our bloodstream is overwhelmed and then it causes an innate immune response in our immunity. And then that's when you see pneumonias, blood clots, and respiratory illnesses and respiratory death. It's not the virus that's actually doing the damage here. Two more real quick. The third one, air pollution. Air pollution binds to these viruses and inside and develop these little clusters. And inside this air pollution is cyanide and a lot of other poisons. So it piggybacks on these viruses, gets down into our bloodstream, and causes a lot more disruption, overwhelming our immune system and causing that downstream of effects. Fourth and final one is, believe it or not, vaccines. So what we've seen here, and I find it amazing how the hubris of the human beings think we can play God and emulate nature. But what we've seen, and you've seen it in studies, that people that have taken vaccines with the flu and other type of illnesses, they are more susceptible and vulnerable to the COVID virus. And there's data out there and studies to show. I can provide those afterwards. And then when we keep taking all these vaccines, we just keep making ourselves more vulnerable to the next pandemic. And there's going to be another one. I'll conclude here. Viruses are our friend. They're a part of nature. We shouldn't be afraid of them. We shouldn't be afraid of our neighbors. Viruses are actually 52% of our genes are from viral inserts into our genomic info into our cells. The placenta and stem cells are from viral inserts into the human body, and then we're able to develop those. It's very, very fascinating. A lot of this, honestly, don't just take my word for it. Go out and do some research for yourself. But what we need to do is get back into a balanced state with this viral messaging in nature and the bacteria. And by doing that, we can remove the toxins from our food, remove the toxins from our water, and probably get out of air pollution as much as you can. I know it's hard in the city. Get into more sunlight. Sunlight is directly correlated with COVID deaths and hospitalizations, 97% of people hospitalized by COVID are deficient in vitamin D. And lastly, and most importantly, we need to get out into nature as much as we possibly can and breathe our biome.